Hello everybody and welcome to Flock Talk. Today we have a big old box from the Perch University that we will be opening today. I don't exactly have a table, so we are just going to go ahead and quickly cut this open on the floor. Pretty sure every single time I open a box it gets more and more dangerous, but maybe that's just me. Lovely recycled paper. Stickers as always. So in this box we have the obligatory aviator harness stickers, which you can stick wherever the heck you want. But the main thing that is in these packages are these. And what these are is a mechanism that allows you to turn any piece of wood, any tree branch, into a perch. So that way if you are somebody who is maybe too young to be using power tools or isn't comfortable using power tools, these allow you to turn any branch that you find outside into a natural wood perch for your bird. So for the small perch holder, it says it is made of polycarbonate plastic with stainless steel bolts. You can position it anywhere in the enclosure. All you got to do is cut the perch to the right length and place it in. No screws or fixings required. You can make changing out the perches really quick and easy, and this one holds up to a 38mm diameter perch or 1.5 inches. The larger perch has all of that same stuff, except it can hold up to 65mm or 2.5-inch diameter perches. So I was sent these for free, but if you were to purchase them yourself, the smaller version is $13 Canadian and the larger version is $14. And then you can of course use the code FLOCKTALK to get another 10% off of that. But the benefit of using something like this is that if you have ever tried to make natural wood branches from scratch yourself before, anytime you have to drill a hole into the branch in order to put that double-sided screw in, there's a very high chance of the wood just splitting open, and then your whole branch is basically trash. You can't really use it anymore once that happens because you can't really use glues and adhesives to hold it together, and you're just going to keep cutting the branch shorter and shorter and shorter while you're trying to make the hole work and the wood not split using 1,000 tips and tricks that you can try and figure out. This kind of eliminates that problem, so now you don't have to drill that hole, you just cut the size perch that you want and then you use these. And although they are plastic, I will say they seem to be pretty similar in durability as most acrylic toys that you can buy for larger birds especially. So if your bird has a bunch of those and they haven't broken them, I really don't see why they would manage to break these unless for some reason they really went after it. And the fact that they're kind of a see-through clear for most birds, that's not going to draw their attention to it. If they were brightly colored, you might have some issues with a bird being more interested in them, but as they stand, they've made them transparent to make them a little less eye-catching, so a bird is more likely to go after the wood perch that you can replace for free over the clear plastic that the mechanism is made out of. With the way that these are designed, it seems like you're pretty limited on the way you can put them in a cage, but I haven't used them yet, so we're going to have to go test that out and see if maybe we can get a little bit of an angle with them or if it becomes unstable at that point. So let's go find some branches and let's experiment. To be quite frank, I just finished cutting down the tree in my backyard and didn't keep a whole ton of the branches other than the huge pieces of tree that I put up in here. So I have one chunk and I think it'll fit the bigger one, so we're going to test that one out. And then if I have the energy to do so, I will go outside and hunt for some bird-safe wood and try and make one to test out the smaller one. But let me grab the big chunk of wood that I know I have that is already disinfected and see if we can make it work with this. It's pretty dang large, so I'm not sure. Obviously, this is not going to fit inside my cages, and this product is specifically designed to only work inside cages. That's the whole point of it, is to be able to add perches into your cage. So I'm just going to take apart this carrier and use each one of its wall panels and pretend like that's the interior of a large aviary. And we're just going to see if it can support the weight of this. Hopefully I can get it to stand okay, and we'll go from there, I suppose. We'll see what happens. I'm unbelievably sad. I know I'm going to get asked a question about it. This carrier is the most beautiful carrier I own, and I wish I had bought a second one when I first got it, but they discontinued it, so I can't buy any more of it. If King's Cages is listening, bring the travel carriers back, the aluminum travel carriers. It's been a while. So this product is pretty self-explanatory. You just unscrew the back and then you stick it on to wherever you want it on the cage or in your aviary or whatever. I honestly love the fact that the perch doesn't have to be in it first when you attach it, because for me personally, my cages are up really high, and it can be really difficult to screw in a perch with the weight of the perch like pushing down on you as you're awkwardly trying to balance it from up high. So the fact that you don't have to have the perch in place in order to put these on can honestly save you a lot of struggle, especially when you're working with branches this thick. So my concern with this product, right, is that it looks like it really wants you to have a pin straight line, which is effectively a dowel perch. In theory, you would put one end in, put the other end in. Yeah, that's kind of what I was worried about. Yeah, so this one's not going to work. It's just too big for the system. That end is working beautifully, but this end is just too thick, so this is not the ideal branch. I have one more branch we can try for testing out the larger ones. It just means I have to dismantle the bird room to do it, but give me a second and I'll grab that one. We're taking this one down for this. Try anyways. How is this even up here? This wasn't too bad. It's going to be putting it up that's going to be the hard part. Whoa. We did it. This one's a bit straighter, and it's actually, the sides are both thin enough to go in here. We're going to ignore this thin branch. If I was putting this in a cage, I would just cut it off. So, I mean, it does its job. It does work. This side is quite thin. Well, it doesn't bounce around too much, actually. It bounces around a little. It makes it a little bit wobblier, whereas like with that end, it fits quite securely, and it's quite a bit thicker. So it rests in this larger size a lot better, and it doesn't wobble when I hit it if I'm a bird landing. The perch doesn't wiggle and bounce and want to like swing up this incline. So that one works a lot better for that. I cannot test out the big one inside my cages because I just don't have perches that are that short and that thick. But we can test out the small one, and they should both work similarly just based on how this kind of checks out. So we're going to test out the small ones. I have a bunch of different perches here that don't currently have perch hardware in them, and we will just pop it in there. So I mean, it holds it, and this is the only thing that kind of bugs me, right, is when you do it this way, it's gonna swing a lot. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, and like if this was a real wall of a cage, this isn't gonna get pushed out or anything. So the only way for this to really fall would be for the bird to lift it up and drop it out. But if you have a bird that has more mobility issues or is a little bit heavier, then this is gonna swing a lot on them, right? And then you could run into issues where a bird, quite often what will happen is they'll grab and then they might freak out because it's moving and they'll flap. And if they're flapping and the perch isn't secure, the perch could start doing this while the bird is flapping, and then you have the perch falling, and then the bird could end up kind of getting hurt if they don't move out of the way. It seems like you might have to be really precise with the size that you cut your branches to make sure it's going to be a really snug fit in here, or make sure that your perch is pretty straight. But let's try out some of the other shapes and let's see how those ones work. This is another one that should be pretty easy to succeed with. Yeah, so even if I were to make it like pressured where it's a secured cage, it wiggles a little but not as much, and this is a much straighter perch. This one I'm curious about. So I wanted to see what would happen if you had a bunch of extra loose branches and different thicknesses and see whether or not it would kind of fall out a bit more or how it would handle that. So I mean, it works. It handles that okay. This could be fun for some birds. You got a little bit of a swing happening. But you do have a little bit of worrisome there where if they try and land here, the whole perch is kind of going down. You could have some fun with this. It's going to be one of those things you have to play by ear and how your bird is. If you've got a bird that likes to throw things around, hey, caught it. They're going to do that. And the thing is it's going to fall. And that could be a potential hazard for your bird if they aren't a particularly strong flyer or just on whim, they don't fly fast enough. They could end up getting knocked down by the perch when that happens. It's just something to be aware of. But otherwise, I mean, it does the job pretty well, and if this was an actual inside of a cage, you could cut the perch to be a really snug fit. So yeah, I mean, you can use a variety of different funky perch shapes by the looks of this. You're just gonna be kind of finagling a bit to make sure that you get both of the ends of the perch lined up in the right spots. That way it does sit in, but you are kind of limited to it having to be at the exact start and end points of the perch. You can't really hang it too much on a horizontal. You'd have to kind of angle the perch to be able to do that, because otherwise you're gonna run into, if you've got it trying to sit. Let's try it. So angles is a really big thing for bird foot health because it takes some of the pressure off the bottom of their foot and puts it on the side. So if you're able to kind of position it at an angle, that would be nice. I mean, you kind of can, but this one is not shaped well for it. It's gonna just pop out. Like, look at that. Yeah, that one works a bit better. I would probably trust that. So you can do it sloped on an angle and have the start and end points, you know, offset from each other. You're just gonna have to be a bit more precise on this type of perch that you select. It does a job, it will do it. I do wish it had like a latch or something to seal in the top of the perch to make it a little bit more stable, but for the small ones anyways, they bounce around just a little too much. So you gotta be a little more picky with this type of perch that you pick to put in these to make sure that it is going to be safe. This is gonna be an interesting test because my cage is attached to the back of the wall, and this side has a divider in it. So I can only actually attach perches to the front wall and to the side wall. So we're gonna see if this mechanism will allow me to put one kind of diagonally across this corner here. The nice thing about this is that all the hardware is actually too big to fall down through the bottom of the cage, which is really nice because every time I'm putting up a regular perch, I always drop the wing nut. Oh my God. So I'm gonna just hold this in place and kind of demo where I think I want it to sit, so that's not gonna sit. How about this way? Ooh, that might work. So this one is simply not gonna work, I don't think. Not on a diagonal like this anyways. You'd have to have a perch that's already kind of that shape and doesn't get weighed to fall down. This is the only other one I have that's already kind of curve shaped. No, see, I just don't think it's gonna work on the corner. I think I'd really have to get just the right shape of perch for it, because as soon as it feels like it's gonna fit it, it just starts doing this like twist and wanting to pop out. Let's try. Oh my goodness. Every time I think I've got it, it's in the wrong spot. This looks like it's gonna work. Oh no. This would probably work if my perch wasn't so long it was hitting the back wall. Let's just, this one's touching the floor now. And now that part's hitting the ceiling. I just want to make sure it's actually genuinely hanging, because otherwise it's actually being supported by the cage. Okay, there. I don't even know if Newt will step on that. Okay, so I got it to work, but like it's just really swingy. Yeah, it's just gonna knock out. You'd have to really have just the right shaped perch for that to work. These really are only designed to go kind of straight back and forth or side to side. Last try that I'm giving these things. I'm gonna try and use this one. It's a little big, so it can't go quite straight. So we're either gonna do a bit of a vertical slope, or we'll try and do a side to side with a gentler slope and see if these are able to manage that. So we'll have to put it to the side. Drop it down. I can. Ooh, too much. Ah, there we go. That one works. That's stable. I like that. Okay, so it works if they have to be offset straight from each other. Does not work if it's gonna be kind of on a corner, unless your branch is like perfectly shaped for that, which none of mine were. So you can go side to side. You can even have it on a bit of a slant. I might even be able to do it a bit more extreme than this if I really wanted to, but that will hold and stay pretty well in place. This one's rocking because it's got a bend at the top, but even with the rock, it's not super popping out. Like, you'd really have to try. So it does work. It's decently sturdy. It's just that the walls kind of have to be opposite of each other in order for them to work. Okay, so final thoughts. I can see this being really helpful to a lot of people. If you're someone who has mobility issues or using power tools is hard for you, or you're someone who's younger or someone who just doesn't feel comfortable using power tools, then these are absolutely a great way to make perch making more accessible to you, and it can be a super great tool for that, and I'm really glad it exists for that reason. However, I don't think it's a perfect replacement for the traditional stainless steel hardware method where you would drill a hole, put in a double-sided screw, and then you have your washers and a wing nut in order to secure it to the edge of a cage. With this, you're really, really limited on how you can put it in the cage and how secure it's going to be. If you have a bird that likes to throw their food dishes, they will absolutely pick up these perches and drop them on the floor. You would have to cut your natural wood very, very precisely so it has a pretty snug fit in order to help avoid that problem. I feel like this would be better if it had some sort of latch that you could close down or something that you could compress and screw down in order to secure that perch more firmly. As it stands, the perch is super wobbly and it can just be lifted out, which lots of birds will definitely do. On top of that, it's not very universal. You can't use it in corners, and you're not gonna be able to use every piece of wood going horizontally on slopes and different angles. If your wood isn't shaped right for it, you're not gonna be able to use it in those contexts. You're pretty much going to have to use this straight across and flat for the most part, unless you go seeking out perches that are specifically that shape and weighted correctly to sit in those positions. So that does make some things a little bit more difficult, and when it comes to parrot foot health, being able to have natural branch perches at different heights and different angles is really important. That's how they relieve pressure from their feet and how you get optimal foot health. But that being said, you could definitely just find a piece of wood that you put straight across, but the wood itself has smaller, thinner branches branching off or has a big dip in it. So there's definitely ways that you could work around that problem. I just think it's going to take a little bit more effort on your part in order to achieve those same results. And that isn't saying that the traditional method is foolproof either. When it comes to having to put the stainless steel hardware into a piece of wood, you often will end up drilling that hole into the wood and splitting it, causing the branch to have to be trashed because it now has a huge crack in it and there's nothing you can really do with it to make it functional again. So this does kind of alleviate that problem and makes that a lot easier for a lot of people. Is it a perfect product? No, it definitely has its fair share of faults, and I do think there's improvements that could be made in order to alleviate a lot of those problems. But as it stands, I think it works just fine for what it's intended to use, and I do like that it makes perch making more accessible and more affordable for a lot of people. If you have a bird that likes to chew your perches, a natural branch perch can go from anywhere from $10 to $20, and you'll be buying a new one every time they get old and dirty and can't be cleaned anymore, or your bird chews them up. With this, it's a clear plastic acrylic. It's really unlikely that a bird is going to break it. It's totally possible that they could, but because it's clear plastic, it's not going to draw their attention to it. They're not going to be as interested in it as they will other things. And then if they chew up the branch, you can just replace it for free by grabbing another one outside, you know, cleaning it and doing all that stuff. So it definitely makes it a bit more affordable and a lot more accessible for a lot of people. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Let me know your thoughts down below. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!